Everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSi DFS Fantasy Baseball Picks. I'm your host, Meg Brewer, 31. So today we have a very small three-game slate early, so I'll just go over a little bit of that for you. We'll do a full breakdown, and then we'll go on to the main seven-game slate tonight at 7:05. So it looks like FanDuel and DK actually match up, which is great. Hats off to McKinley last 2 days. Usually we try to split up the slates throughout the week, and usually Wednesday's a lighter day, but he's had two monsters in a row and did a great job breaking those down. So personally, I was a little bit off last couple of days. I had too much Max Scherzer the first day, but I had the right bats, so that kind of negated anything there. And then last night I had some good pitching, but the bats just didn't come through. So looking forward to a couple good slates today to get back on track here. And if you haven't looked at the baseball standings recently, it's just been crazy. Like I just kind of pulled up this morning to look at it, and the Marlins are actually currently in the playoffs at like with a record of 38 and 31. But then like St. Louis, like with all that like talent in their lineup, is dead last in the National League. They've lost 8 out of the last 10 games, and they're like 27 and 42. That was just blew my mind. They're worse than Colorado, Washington, the Cubs, and the Mets aren't doing great. San Diego, with all that talent too, still a game below 500. Philly's right at 500. So should be interesting to see what happens. Trade deadline coming up at the end of July, so a couple months for teams to make some moves. And even in the American League, Oakland's won 7 out of the last 10. I mean, they lost last night, but they were on like a 7-game winning streak before that. So not that they're completely turning things around. They're still down at the bottom. KC's falling down there. They're starting to get some injuries and stuff. And it's good to see Baltimore still leading the wild card race, still in it, having a good season. Toronto's right there, the Angels right there, Red Sox are getting closer. So I think it's going to be an exciting finish to the season. And we're a couple months into it now, and starting to see some things that make cash games a little bit easier. Like we kind of know who's pitching well, we kind of know who's hitting well, we kind of know which bullpens and stuff. And I don't have NASCAR this weekend because they're off for Father's Day, so just check out. I'm going to try to put together maybe kind of a recap of like where we are season, like who's hot, who's not, good bullpen, strikeout averages, just kind of things like that. So I think probably try to roll that out like a Sunday or next Monday for you, just to kind of help you out overall, like with trends for your lineup. I didn't want to do it during a total breakdown show. So spend enough of your times now. Let's get into the slate. So early slate, let's just look at this, bring it up quickly for us here. You have Blue Jays and Orioles, Kikuchi and Wells. I think Kikuchi's kind of struggled. I think Baltimore's going to be my primary stack here. I know Gunnar Henderson's been on fire, but I don't know if he'll be in the lineup here with the lefty on lefty. He might pinch hit later, but I might give the guy a day off. So it's probably going to be full of righties. And I know Kikuchi struggled, so I really kind of want to target the righties there. And I kind of I think I'm going to be pretty much different with my construction compared to everybody else on this slate, because I think that everybody's really going to probably take Bradley and Tampa Bay there against Oakland. And, I might definitely consider Wells here as my SP2 here. I think, it's a slate. The other game is Philadelphia and Arizona, and you have Aaron Nola going against Arizona. And I think Nola, just with name recognition, but he's really struggled this season. Arizona can be very good offensively. I know Marte had back issues. He was out a little bit. And Carroll sat yesterday in rest, but I just think because they're starting against a left-hander, I think he's perfectly fine. But I might even get sneaky with pitching here, and I think Todd Bradley is definitely going to be your SP1 that you're going to want on FanDuel and on DK. But SP2, I might actually go Blackburn, because Tampa Bay, again, they beat the A's yesterday, but they lost the first two games of the series. And they haven't been putting up an astounding amount of runs. They've had a couple, like Franco's been banged up here and there in and out of the lineup. One of the other lower Laos, the second baseman's out. So I know Siri's been hitting well, and like some of the other pieces filling in have been doing decently, but Blackburn's not a horrible pitcher. He's been decent against right-handers. They don't have a ton of lefties on here, so I don't think it's crazy to go Taj Bradley and Blackburn in the same lineup. So then I'm definitely going with a Baltimore stack. They're gonna be my primary one, so I'm looking at probably like Rushman, Hayes, Santander there, maybe some of the other position players that hit up. Like Hicks has found a renaissance since moving away from the Yankees. Urias, McCann at catcher. If Rushman sits for some reason, Mateo's good at shortstop. So it's going to be an all right-handed lineup against Kikuchi, and definitely Baltimore is going to be my favorite stack here. I think a lot of people are going to look at the total and go Tampa Bay against Blackman because they have a 5.28 total, and let them do that. I'm going to be different. It's a small slate, and hopefully this brings me the money. So Baltimore, and then I'm filling in with Phillies. It works perfectly, almost to the dollar. Absolutely love my line there. And for FanDuel, I think I built kind of similar there. So yeah, Bradley is my pitcher to start out with. And I just keep on giving me the wrong. I don't want the 7:00 game. And then I took again, I took the Orioles. I took 4 of them, and then I took, we were easily fit 4 Phillies in, made a nice little stack there. So let's get on to the evening slate now. Again, starting at 7:10. So we got 5 more minutes to tinker with our lineups tonight. Detroit and Minnesota. So if you look at like most of the different sites out there and stuff, I haven't seen anybody talking about this, but watch the weather this morning. The smoke that was such a nemesis to us like late last week throughout the East Coast, canceled some games. It's supposed to be over the north, I don't know what called northwest, but north central. So we're talking about like Minnesota, Chicago, and Minnesota. I saw that they were kind of getting into the redwood air quality, so just have to watch that for this game. Other than that, like it's not going to be raining or anything. And they're talking about the smoke potentially being higher up in the atmosphere, so maybe it's just like less sunlight, so maybe cooler temperatures than normal, and not the air quality where they can't play the game. But just again, just keep an eye on that. So we have Matthew Boyd and Sonny Gray. Matthew Boyd, I think, is in play here. Minnesota has I mean, he's given up runs and stuff, but Minnesota has such a high K rate. I think that you could potentially play him here. In Minnesota, I think Sonny Gray is the top pitcher on the slate because there's really nobody left besides Carpenter in this Detroit lineup with their injuries and stuff. And again, it's a young team, and hopefully maybe like the Orioles, they put it together down the road in a couple of years. Like I'd really like to see Detroit come back to prominence. Like I just kind of miss them as I mean, they never were a powerhouse, but they were always through the 80s and 90s, they were consistently, there in contention, but just recently they've just turned into a doormat. So love to see them get back on track with the young pitching and the young hitting, putting it together, maybe get some good free agents in the offseason and put together a run down the road. Not that I'm a huge Tigers fan at all, but just again, just kind of classic team. You hate to see any team struggle forever unless they bring it on themselves. Minnesota on the other side, I really like them. Favorite cheap stack here, fill in really well with all the injuries. The guys that are left are pretty cheap. You're going to probably see almost all righties here except for like Kepler, and maybe if Gallo gets back in the lineup, but I hate him lefty on lefty. It's just such a high strikeout guy there. So Detroit bats, I think it would be leverage because I think Sonny Gray is going to be the number one pitcher on the slate, but I really don't see like them maybe nickel and diming things here. I don't really see a ton of power given up by Gray. And then on the other side of the ball here, I like I said, Minnesota's really cheap films. Okay, so the only weather issue tonight is going to be Colorado and Atlanta, which I think it's fine because it looks like solid rain up to 7 p.m., but then it like tails off really quickly. You're talking about like 20% like an hour into the game. So maybe with the delay, same thing with Boston last night. They played through it. Everything was fine. Should still be like in the 70s. So it'll be a warm rain down there in Atlanta. It's just hot and muggy and this time of year. So instead of being like in the 80s at night, it'll be in the 70s, a little bit cooler, but it's should still be good hitting weather, especially against Kyle Freeland. So he's a fade for me, not going to throw him his pitcher. And AJ Smith-Shawver gets his second start here, did pretty good in his first start. He's getting called up way earlier just because of the situation with like all the guys being hurt in the Atlanta pitching rotation. So just trying to buy time for them to get healthy, but maybe down the road he's going to factor in and be a someone that's going to be permanently in the rotation come playoff time if he does well. So we'll just have to see. But I think he's perfectly fine. He's probably my second favorite cheap pitcher here tonight. Love the matchup for him. Just have to watch the weather and make sure that it's not going to be like a stop go thing. So he only gets like 2 or 3 innings, and then there's a 2-hour rain delay. But it shouldn't be like that. The range should be pretty much done before first pitch, so they just need to dry off the field, get things going. They should be fine for this. So Colorado, really, if you just want to take some one-offs against this pitcher, pretty much lefties. So McMahon, who's really hasn't had a great season here, and Nolan Jones, who's been pretty much fire. Moustakas might get but he just seems to be toast. He seems he's done. Really nobody else here as I'm looking through the lineup that maybe Profire is switch hitter, but nobody else really I absolutely love here. And then on the Braves side, just everybody against Kyle Freeland. Top stack on the slate. You have so much cheap pitching, especially with this Braves guy that you can, or like I said, Boyd and a couple others that we're going to talk about here too. You can get it in, you can get a top pitcher in, and you can get a Braves stack in, and there's like 3 teams that you could cheaply stack with them. So it all works tonight. It's going to be really good. So next up, we have Pittsburgh and Chicago Cubs. Wind's going to be blowing in here like 18 miles per hour. So that bodes well for pitching. So Stroman, I think, might be under owned, but if people are paying up for both pitchers, I think that he makes it a great SP2 candidate. If you want to try to get more bats in and pivot off of, say, the Minnesota game gets smoked out or for some reason there, and the other 3 guys in the high range I will talk about coming up all have questions marks. Either they're up against good offense or been struggling recently or just don't have K upside in their matchup, and Stroman might be your perfect SP1 for you here. Rich Hill on the other side, I know he's over the hill, but still he can get some strikeouts. The Cubs can strike out when the wind blowing in, that's really going to negate power here. So I think definitely someone to potentially look at too in the cheaper range. A little bit more expensive than Boyd and Smith, Shaw, and Grove, but at 6'3", I think he's definitely in play here as an SP2, especially if you're mass multi-entering. Pittsburgh's been hitting well recently, but I don't really like them against Stroman. I think they're probably behind Detroit as they'd probably be my second to last team that I would really want to stack. But they definitely have more talent than Detroit, so I think definitely in play here. But the wind blowing in and Stroman be a decent factor, and the Cubs bullpen's not bad either, so really not excited about them. Cubs on the other side here. I think in an extreme GPP, or if you're playing a 20 max, have one Cubs stack here. You have just the right-handed power guys against Hill is definitely somebody to be able to take advantage of that. So next up, we have, which looks like a good pitching duel here, Shohei Ohtani and Nathan Eovaldi, Angels in Texas, but you've got 2 good offenses here too. I'm going to be off Ohtani for a while. I just read an article about him that I think like the 2 way thing is really starting to catch up with him with the WBC pitching in that also in spring training. He's just his strikes are down, his velocity is down. He's giving up more runs. I think he's still a talented pitcher, but it's really the focus of trying to do both things elite like he did for like the last couple of seasons is really, and maybe it's just a funk. Maybe he'll snap out of it. Maybe he's just in a rut. Maybe he'll come back and be fine. But this Rangers offense has been red hot. So I am not going to be playing Ohtani tonight. If he beats me, he beats me. Eovaldi on the other side, I think, is probably a better option. They're only $100 apart, but I would rather pay for Gray or Stroman here. Like, I don't like the matchup. He's been kind of reverse splitsy at times too, and the Angels can throw out a lot of righties against you. So I think definitely both pitchers are in play. I say proceed with caution. I'm probably not going to have any Ohtani and maybe just a little of Aldi, because I have seen the Angels strike out and lay some eggs, but they've seemed to be coming together. They seem to be getting their people back. So, looking at an Angel stack, you can't play Ohtani, but like I said, the righties are fine. So Ward, Trout, Rendon, Thassis as a cheap catcher here, batting fifth at 2.5. Drury, if he's not suspended, I can't remember if he appealed it or not, if he served it or not. Even Walsh is cheap at first base. Like, that guy has had some power before and been great against righties. So someone to consider. And then on the Texas side, they are my favorite GPP stack. I'm going to have a Texas stack against Ohtani because I think they're going to have low ownership, and I just know how explosive they can be. And if Ohtani is not right, then that could be like something that really separates me tonight. Next up, we have the Nationals and the Astros. Mackenzie Gore and Javier. Gore's been serviceable. This Houston lineup has had more strikeouts. Looks like Alvarez is going to be out for a while. Brantley's not back yet either, but he's a lefty. There's a lot of righties here. So Durbin's a pretty good contact hitter, getting on base there. You have power in Atrube. Bregman hasn't shown it too much this year, but I mean, it's still there. Tucker can be fine lefty and lefty. Abreu's starting to figure things out. And even McCormick had a home run like last night or the night before. So Maldonado can have some power. So I don't love Gore here. But in, such a small slate, I think can be in play. I think he's probably priced in no man's land. Like at 7-8, I think people just drop down to like the Gross, Smith, Shaw, Hill, Boyd range, or go up to the high range. But if you want to be kind of unique and go like maybe Stroman, Gore in your lineup, the two guys in like the no man's land there, and not pay up and not pay down, and then that could pay off potentially. So I think I'm gonna try that in one line. I don't know who would stack with them, but we'll figure out. Obviously not gonna be Houston because they're facing them. Bat wise, Washington or Javier on the other side. Like, I don't know if I want to pay that for him, because it seems like he's had some good games, he's had some bad games, but Washington, as bad as they've been, don't strike out a lot. Again, you probably tired of me saying this. They're a team again that like nickels and dimes you, death by 1,000 cuts. And I think that Javier will be able to get through innings and stuff. So I think he's probably better on FanDuel because the innings pitch and can probably get the quality start with Houston putting up enough runs to even get him the win here. But I don't think he's going to get a ton of Ks. I think it's going to be ground balls and fly balls and things like that. So I think it's going to be a pitch to contact game versus like a strikeout game for him. So, and paying 10 too, he just doesn't have the upside. Again, give me Gray against a terrible Detroit team. Give me Stroman with wind blowing in. And then Javier or Evaldi and Ohtani, I just don't want to touch with the offenses against them. So again, he's here. It's a small slate. I'm sure maybe in some mass multi-entering that he's definitely someone to be in play against this Washington lineup, and maybe he'll break the slate and go out there and throw a complete game shutout. It's baseball. Anything can happen. Bat wise, like I said, Washington, in the cheap range, I think you can fill them in. Again, I think they might get some hits against him, but you're not going to see power. You're not going to go like home run hunting and the one-off here, I don't think. Javier's better than that. And then Houston, I think they're definitely probably my second favorite stack on the slate here against Gore. I don't expect a ton of power, but I do think that they can put up a decent amount of runs. They almost have a 5 total. So Cleveland Guardians and San Diego Padres here, Logan Allen and Ryan Weathers. Allen, I have him as the fade category. It might just be more like the non-interested category. Can he go out there and get you 12 to 14 DK points against this Padres lineup? Yeah, I mean, there are some strikeouts in it still, and they said they're underwhelming. Like, I called them the paper champions. Like, if you look at this lineup on paper, you are so scared at them, and like even like the pricing of them to try to stack them is just astounding. But they just haven't produced. But they're kind of like St. Louis, but not as bad as St. Louis, because St. Louis, like I said earlier in the video, is like dead last. But they could put it together, and Toronto's like that too. But Toronto, it'd probably be like Toronto, San Diego, St. Louis. Like, Toronto does put it together more often than not, but it's just the potential to be explosive is there. It just doesn't always come. So against Logan Allen here, wind's blowing in 8 miles per hour. Is San Diego, so wind doesn't matter as much. But it's pretty much a pitching park. So I mean, if you're mass multi entering, you want to play with Logan Allen again. He's another one that's kind of priced in no man's land. He's a little bit more expensive than the low guys, but a little cheaper than the medium guys. So, but I don't think I'm touching him. Weathers on the other side is definitely a fade for me. Uh, Cleveland hasn't done much recently besides Jose Ramirez's 3 home run game and then backing up with another home run after that. And it's a lefty on lefty. So like maybe Bell would work out here. That's the only thing I don't like about this Cleveland offense, unless they roll out something, is they kind of alternate lefty righties and they seem left-handed had it heavy. So they don't really have the splits here. So I couldn't even make a full stack of Cleveland if I really wanted to try and feel good about it. So I think they serve good as like decent fill-ins if you're not using Minnesota or Washington. If you can get up to Ramirez, is only 4.5, which is criminally low, it seems, for him with the amount of power he has, especially against a pitcher like Weather. And in San Diego, I think out of the top teams, they're going to be probably the lowest owned ones. So, if you want to take them as one-offs, if you have some salary left, or if you want to stack them, I think you can go to T Soto, Machado, Sanchez, Bogart, and just cut it off right there. Maybe like Dixon or Kim lead off here with the lefty on the mound. I've seen that sometimes. So if you got a cheap guy in the leadoff spot and want to take him with one off or throw him in your stack there, that's fine. But I think San Diego could be sneaky tonight, so I'll definitely probably have a little bit of exposure to them, but not a ton, just because they've let me down too much recently. Next up, we have the White Sox in the final game against the Dodgers. We have Dylan Cease and Grove. Cease's been horrible recently, so I am not playing him. I think the Dodgers, probably my third favorite stack. I mean, it's hard between them and Houston, but I mean, yeah, I'll keep it the way it is, but they're really close to being the number 2 stack here. It's just with pricing wise, I think I like Houston a little bit better because the Dodgers are just way more expensive to try to get the stack in. Michael Grove on the other side has struggled, but so has this White Sox team. So I think he's in play. Is probably, I love his price on FanDuel. Like, he can get almost any bat in that you want if you play him or Boyd there. And I think that they probably can go deep enough in the game, maybe not to get the quality start, but to get to enough points if the bats go off with just like I said, just such a top heavy questionable pitching slate here with Gray potentially with the smoke. We'll just have to see if that game is okay. But like with Valdi and Otani facing each other and Javier without the K upside, it's just I think Grove definitely can come and play and just pay up for bats like Atlanta or the Dodgers or like San Diego, Houston, Texas, or Angels. There's so many great opportunities there. So White Sox, I think, definitely make a great GPP contrarian stack here against Grove. I don't think Grove's a top pitcher, so I don't put him in the leverage category. But I think, in GPP, and definitely take a stack of them here. I love Sheets price on lefty with power against a righty, only 2K. Trying to see who else, like Benetiende there. Like, I don't know if like who else I'd play. I might just stack probably the best White Sox bats and just hope that Grove just has a bad night overall in the GPP, and then just try to correlate not even worry about splits. So like, I try to work like Sheets and Benetiende into, so it'd probably be like a wraparound thing. I'd probably go 8, 1, 2, like 3, 4, maybe, skip over and use Grandal and like eliminate like Roberts or Jimenez as one of the bats, so I can have like the switch hitter there. So I'd at least have 3 lefties in my stack. Dodgers on the other side, I think you can play almost anybody. Like, I struggle playing Freeman. Like, he just hasn't really delivered as much this year. He's like 6'3", so expensive. But like, you're playing course pricing here for the Dodgers, and that's pretty much why I put him third in the stack. The only silver lining in this rainbow here, or in this thunderstorm, would be that you have the cheap guys in the middle of the order. Like Haywood has been consistent. He's had a hit in like 4 or 5 straight games. He's only 2.5. Peralta is starting to do better. Like he was absolute garbage, but there's another lefty there. So between those two guys at 2.5 and 2.7, then if your other three guys are up in the 5 or 6K range, then it does make it more workable. So that's what I got for you. Let's look at some builds and get you on your way for your Thursday. So again, here's the deal. The teams that I'm playing in cash are the two weather concerned teams. It's the smoke game and it's the potential rain game. So hopefully I've given you enough here to be able to pivot if not. But check the video back around, let's say, 6:30, because that should give us still 40 minutes to lock. So by 6:30 tonight, check the comments in the video. If for some reason either one of these games is not going to play, or if I'm pivoting off of these cash lines, I will give you kind of the build of who I'm taking for pitchers wise and stack wise and some of the players to help you out. So come back to the video around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, and I will have an update for you if I'm pivoting off these cash lines that I'm showing you right here. So gray is going to be my SP1 here. SP2, probably taking one of the guys in the low range here. Groves, Mr. Shaw, probably my favorite ones. Hill and Boyd, I think, are more of a GPP. Give me Murphy. I'm paying up a catcher here. He looks really good in this matchup here. So at first base, I'll give you the choice here. You can take Olsen from the Braves as your 5th Brave, or you can take Solano from Minnesota. LB's Riley, Correa, Acuna. And then depending on where you went at first base, I think there's only a couple options for Minnesota for the outfield. There's, the Braves have like between Azuna and Harrison, and Pilar might be in there, and he's like dirt cheap. I think he's at like 2K or 2.2, like really, really inexpensive to fill that in. Or you might end up with a one-off, which is perfectly fine too in this line. It all probably depends on who you pick as your SP2 there. And again, like I said, if you need salary relief, Sheets there, if you want to throw him in at 2K in the outfield to get a better SP2, and then take like a Minnesota guy or a Braves guy if you don't play Olsen at first base. And then, that makes a nice line up for you. FanDuel, Gray, Murphy, second base. You just have to decide if you want Albies there, if you want to take, if you want him to be your 5th, a 4th Brave. You can't play 5 on FanDuel. Riley, Correa, Acuna, fill in the outfield, might have to take a one-off. I like Solano. You can't play Murphy, Solano, and Olsen all in the same lineup. So if you want to put Olsen there, that's fine. But Solano's just such a cheap guy from Minnesota leading off. If you want to switch and find another team that pairs in there better, like Washington or Cleveland, or do a mix of Minnesota, Washington, and Cleveland as your cheap guys, then I'm perfectly fine. Even maybe throw some White Sox in there because you're not playing Grove. Then that definitely is where you want to go. But you want to make sure you have your 4 favorite Braves in there, and Gray is your pitcher. So for GPP, Boyd or Grave, or take both. Like I said, if these high-end guys all flop, and Valdi versus Ohtani, the offensives win out, Javier doesn't get the K upside to pay off his price tag, and then Gray's the only guy left, and if he has such high ownership and flops, then if you make value with Boyd and Grove and your bats come through, then you're off to races. Focus on Texas. I gave you my full Texas stack there. If one of the guys is off, then obviously I'll pivot and probably try to put somebody else in the lineup, but maybe like Heim or Garver, one of the catchers, probably Heim because he's the switch hitter there. And then you can fill in this. If you take Boyd and Grove, you can fill in with San Diego. You can fill in with the Dodgers. You can fill in. Houston doesn't do as well because like Maldonado is such a cheap catcher, and like you pretty much have Tucker, and then like not a great outfielder. Angels you could fill in with this. There's so many. White Sox you can fill in with this with Grandal and 2 outfielders. So there's so many different ways you can go in this GPP here. And then finally, FanDuel, Grove or Boyd, whichever one works for you. Here again, I'm taking Texas, but I'm going with Houston, so it's the all Texas stack apparently. So low, Simeon, Bregman, Seager, Tucker, lefty and lefty, I'm fine with. Fill in the rest with the rest of the Astros and Houston. Take a one off if you need to, and that's what I got. So again, check the comments back around 6:30. If I'm pivoting off any of these cash plays, I will let you know. If you have any of your own questions or comments, please put them in the chat or reach out to me at Megaro31 on Twitter. My DMs are open. And if you want more information on FSi DFS, you can always sign up by going to the description of the video, and the link to our website is there. Very, very cheap pricing for you. And again, if we're helping you out with these videos, please help us back. Subscribe to the channel so you know when the videos are coming out. Like the video so it can get out to more people there through the algorithm, and share with your friends. And it's been amazing because there's a category when we look to the YouTube breakdown to see how many people have been sharing on a weekly basis. There's quite a few of you who have shared the video on your social media or with friends through text or whatever. Anytime you do that, it lets us know. So we just so appreciate it. I so appreciate you watching it. It's what helps me every single day, either stay up late at night or get up early in the morning to break down these slates. I love baseball, probably my favorite DFS sport, and it just makes all this labor so much more worthwhile the more people that are enjoying the content and are benefiting from it. So appreciate you watching. Thanks again. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday. Good luck in your contest. If you have any questions, you know how to get hold of me, and I'll have the video tomorrow. So I will see you then.